every one of us is going to do something for the last time. For example, there'll be a last time you play tennis, right? And there's a last time you'll eat a kumquat, and there's a last time you'll listen to a Barry White song. And for everything, there'll be a less time for everything. But the problem is we never appreciate things as if they were the last time.
You are listening to Personal Development Mastery, helping you take the simple actions to master personal development and create the life you yearn for. I'm your host, 𝘁rep𝗲𝘄𝘆𝘀. A few years ago, I was unfulfilled and unmotivated. I felt I had lost my sense of purpose and my life was merely passing by. Since then, I've been on a journey of personal development that has transformed every aspect of my life. My mission is simple: to inspire you to take action towards a purposeful and fulfilling life. In this podcast, I invite myself inside the minds of remarkable entrepreneurs, authors, thought leaders, healers, spiritual teachers, people who share the wisdom from their life's journey. So, if you're ready to find practical insights that you can implement right now, make sure you follow the podcast and get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's episode, I am delighted to be joined by Jonathan Legg. Jonathan, you are a veteran adventure traveler and TV host and producer, having hosted 5 seasons of Road Less Traveled, exploring off-the-beaten-path destinations worldwide. You recently published your first book, The 7 Ahas Every Traveler Should Have, and you say that many people are traveling the wrong way, and because they travel like that, they lose a chance at self-growth. And your goal is to give the reader a new lens so that the road will become a great guru or muse, as you call it. Jonathan, welcome to Personal Development Mastery. What a pleasure it is to speak.
Thank you for having me here. This is great.
This is such an important topic, and I haven't discussed in my podcast much about this, so I was really looking forward to our conversation. Traveling as, personal development, self-growth through traveling, and you have, lots of amazing experiences and stories about traveling. What I would like to start, before we actually go into the content of the book and these ahas that the traveler should have, I would like to ask you to give us a brief background. I mean, your story. How did you become this kind of, a lifelong adventure traveler? What was your inspiration to do that, and when did it happen?
For sure. Well, I think I was, like all of us, fate is, fate in biology determine who you are. And I was fated to be born in Peoria, Illinois, in the suburbs. But before I was even a year old, my parents moved to Hong Kong for 3 years, and then the Philippines for 4 years. And so I came to consciousness in an expat community in Asia, with people around the world working there, not to mention the local culture, the culture of Hong Kong, culture of Manila and the Philippines, but then all the other expats and the expat kids I was exposed to. And then we went back to Peoria when I was about 8 years old, and I went from a very diverse sort of environment to one that was super closed, the suburbs of the Midwest, where the culture there is sort of like a simulacrum of culture. You go to, for Italian food, you go to the Olive Garden. For Mexican food, you go to 𝘁rep𝗲𝘄𝘆𝘀, where they serve a chimichanga, which doesn't, as far as I know, doesn't even exist in Mexico. It's like a Walt Disney version of culture, sort of. Mm-hmm. And luckily, because I came to consciousness in Asia, I could see through the veil, right? I could see that this wasn't the real deal. And so I craved authenticity. I knew out there the real stuff was out there. And so as soon as I could, my goal was just to get on the road as soon as I could. So, coming out of school, I got into English teaching, and I went to Bogota, Colombia, actually in a pretty rough time in 1996. And then I went to Italy, and then I discovered that being a flight attendant was easier than being an English teacher if you wanted to travel. So I became a flight attendant with United Airlines, and
Right.
I flew the minimum amount of hours, and I just used my benefits to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And then 9/11 happened, and business plunged in the airlines, as you can imagine. And my airline, United, offered these massive furloughs. They offered like this 2-year furlough where you could keep your benefits, accrue seniority, you had health, you had travel benefits. And so I took those 2 years and I went to Japan, and kind of accidentally became an actor in Japan. And so this allowed me to make some money, have some fun, and plunge into Japanese culture. And then one day I'm on a set in Japan, and I'm working with a Japanese director real late at night. And this guy was extremely open and affable for a Japanese man. So much so that at one point he looked at me and he said, you take this more serious than the other guys. Do you ever think about jumping in the deep end of the pool? And I said, what do you mean, deep end of the pool? He's like, LA. So I felt, those moments in life where you feel like a window open up in space and time, and you realize that if you don't go through that window now, you're probably never going to go. With this Japanese director really opening himself up and extending himself to give me this encouragement. If I wasn't going to make a jump to LA then, I was never going to do it. So I came to LA, and I was crashing on a buddy's couch that first week, and he had an old copy of a actor's magazine on his desk, and in the back were classifieds, and there was a job posting for a travel show host. And I applied for it. I had a little bit of a dialogue with the company. I had a lot of travel experience at this point, but I didn't have good copy. All my video content was goofy stuff from Japan. So they picked another guy. They just stopped talking to me. That's how it works in LA. But 2 years later, I guess the main guy from this company left to start another thing. And he pulled the old audition tapes and he called me. So you can imagine 2 years later, I've totally forgotten about this. And out of the blue, I think I'm filming a promotion video for the MGM in Las Vegas. I'm in my room on break, and then the phone rings. And this guy's like, hey, do you remember a few years ago you auditioned for this thing? And he offers me another job as a travel show host. And boom. So there's the quick progression from expat kid to English teacher to flight attendant to Japanese actor to travel show host.
I know that it is one of those difficult questions when you have to condense, so many things into a very short and relevant answer. But thank you for yes, of course it was. I would like to really then get to the point of discussing traveling as a way of self-development, because you know that very well, better than me, that most people do not travel with that purpose of evolving or growing. They see it either as a break from their routine in life, or as a method to tick off countries on a list, and usually what happens is that they go there and they take lots of photographs of sites that so can you tell me about there is a question there that I was trying to formulate in my mind what I was saying, but I would like a comment about how most people travel based on your experience nowadays, and what is it that you are talking about instead? What's the missing maybe element to start seeing traveling differently?
For sure. Well, I grew up with travel literature. That was kind of the dominant media at the time. So you had a guy like Tim Cahill or Pico Iyer. They couldn't just sell a book saying, well, I did this and then I did that. And, look at these gorgeous visuals. They had to communicate through text.
Mhm.
And I think that compelled a deeper narrative, right? They had to extract some wisdom and some philosophy out of the destination and pass it on to the reader.
Mhm.
And now we're in a different era of social media where the visuals can do the talking, and instead of selling books, you're getting likes and follows. And so in a way, it's made things more accessible, but it's also made things more shallow. And it's subtly reframed the dialogue. So I think new travelers are kind of born into this frame and don't realize it, that when they go abroad, quite often they're on someone else's agenda. Either they're on the agenda of maybe the person who arranged their trip, the travel company, and it's just about let's knock out these sites, or they're on the agenda of a social media company that feeds on content. So they're running around just trying to get that content and play that game.
Mhm.
Or sometimes, and I fell prey to this for a while. You want to get a well-traveled status. You want to be known as a well-traveled person, a traveler. So you're just trying to jam as much as you can into the time. Like I quote unquote did the Baltics in 10 days, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia in 10 days. And I thought, yeah, now I'm a big shot because I have three new stamps in my passport, and I know I've been to the Baltics, right? But the truth is, if anybody asked me a deep question about the culture of Estonia or Lithuania or Latvia, that well-traveled status that I hope to accrue, well, it would scratch off like cheap paint, right? And
Mhm.
and also, what I've learned is, if you tell somebody, oh yeah, I've been to 100 countries or 120 countries, really nobody cares, because it doesn't offer them any value, right? What are they going to do with that? It's only for your ego.
Vanity.
Uh,
Yeah.
Vanity, right? It would be much better if I just went to a few countries. But I got so deep in those countries that I learned to look at life through the lens of a new culture,
Mhm.
because everybody does things a little bit differently. And what you learn is some people do it better, some people do it worse. But just like when you're in the woods, when you're in the forest and you pull out a map and a compass and you need to figure out where the hell am I, you need to triangulate, right? So you look into the distance and you say, oh, there's that peak over there, and I can find it on the map. And then over there I see there's that smooth hill. I see that on the map. And now I can, because the peak's there and the hill is there, that means I'm here. So being exposed to other cultures in the same way allows you to figure out where you are on the map of life. Like, what is the best life for you and others? And so going back to this analogy of me telling you I've been to 120 countries, or versus me only going to 3 countries, but plunging deep. Now I can share that knowledge with you. Rather, me going to 120 countries, this brag does nothing for you. But if I can share the perspective of different cultures with you,
Mhm.
uh, now you can extract some value from that different way of looking at life, and gives you options for what it means to be your best self, or to live the vita bella, the good life. And you only get that value by getting off the social media agenda, getting off somebody else's travel itinerary, and slowing down a bit, and listening instead of just imposing your itinerary on a destination, like it's a one-way exchange. it's a dialogue, and you're listening as well as enacting your agenda. Of course, you want to see a few things, you have some plans, but it also there has to be a balance of, here are these things I want to do, but also you need those beats to just be quiet and amble around and have no agenda and pay attention and listen. And, something gets offered to you, a new door opens. It's not what you planned. We'll just walk through it, follow that lead.
This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing it in such a way. I like what you were just saying about having no agenda and sometimes just follow the opportunity that might present itself, like intuitively going for that. That's a beautiful piece of advice, and I liked very much what you said. You said see life through the lens of a new culture, and I think that is a really important realization to make, that while I am in that country that has its own completely, depending on where you are, of course, different way of perceiving things, communicating, all these things, to gain that kind of different perspective by being there. So I really liked the way you presented that. And I want to ask, to bridge that actually, as with your book about the 7 ahas that the traveler must have in when they travel. Can you tell me? We will have a chance to hopefully speak about 2 or 3 of them, but I would like to ask what inspired you to create this book and have that number of 7 ahas that you ended up with.
That's a good question. Well, travel definitely transformed me because despite having that early upbringing in Asia, after so much time in the Midwest, I would say when I left high school, I was a little bit closed-minded and a little bit fearful of people who were different than me, because you're kind of so isolated, and it's so easy in this world to kind of make somebody else, to have in groups and out groups, right? To say these people are the others, whether it's the people on the other side of town or across the border or in a different continent, and it's kind of almost inherent in our genes, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't push back against it. There's some things in our genes from our hunter-gatherer background that are beautiful, that should be embraced, and there's other things that should be modified or tampered down, right? I mean, road rage makes total sense from a hunter-gatherer point of view. If you're in a group of 100 people, that's your whole world, is these 100 people all the time, right? And can I swear on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if another male in your tribe one day is like, "Fuck you, motherfucker," you're gonna think, I better kill this guy before he puts a spear in my back on the next hunting expedition, right? Mm-hmm. He showed this open aggression towards me. So there's some logic to that. So when you're driving on the road and somebody rolls down their window and says that to you, you obsess about it all day long, like, kill that motherfucker, But it doesn't make any sense in a city where you're never going to see that guy again, right? You can just drive away. He's not going to kill you on the next hunting expedition, but your genes are still running this program. Mm-hmm. So going back to otherism, we have this tendency to people we're not exposed to become fearful of them and suspicious of them. And travel is the best way to break that down. And it's so crucial now in our world, now that we have this ability to kill each other at a mass scale, is to when you go and meet other people. And I've been around the world, both in personal travels and filming the show, and I've met I've met vampire aficionados in the catacombs of Paris. I've met goth rockers in underground clubs in London, hunter-gatherers in Sarawak who still use poison darts out of blowpipes. And yet when you hang with these guys for a certain amount of time, of course there are these beautiful surface differences, but at the core, we hope for similar things. We want to be loved. We want to be understood. We want to have purpose in life. So we are the same creature in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I answered your question or went off on a complete tangent there.
These questions do not have a specific way to be answered. There's
okay, good.
No, thank you for your answer. No, it's.
Cheers.
I would actually like to ask about these 7 ahas. I'm going to bring back the conversation there, and there are 2 things that come to mind, but I will ask them one at a time. So, the first one. Tell me one of those ahas that you believe for the listener right now, it is something that they need to consider really having that or implementing it or doing something about it in a way on their next travel. Let's pick one and we will move. I will see how we will move from there.
Okay, great. Well, we touched on one already, which is it's better to go deeper than farther,
Mm-hmm.
right? To slow down, to plunge deep into a culture. Quite often, more is less, right? We live in a consumer culture where we're just kind of always cajoled into thinking the more of something I can get, the better. But really it's the profundity of your travel you're going to get the best stories, you're going to get the best insight from slowing down at a destination and taking time with it and not rushing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I give an example in the book of a monument on a hill. In many places you travel, there'll be some kind of a religious monument sitting on top of a hill. Nowadays, it's usually a Christian symbol, but probably before that Christian symbol was there was some kind of a pagan or indigenous statue or sacred site. And so people have been climbing up, pilgrims have been, and believers and probably hunters and gatherers have been climbing up that hill for thousands of years to make sacrifice, to think about their lives, to reaffirm who they are and what their tribe is about. And you arrive there as a traveler, maybe on a tour bus, and in the last 10 years, a road has been built, and the tour bus winds up the hill. You spill out, you get 10 minutes on top. You think, oh, wow, that's a beautiful statue. I better take a picture of it because that's what I'm supposed to do. So you spend the whole 10 minutes lining up the best picture. And then, hey, it's time to get back on the bus. And we got 5 more things to see today. So you get back on the bus. And pretty soon you've forgotten all about that monument. Your picture is one of many. Nobody really cares about it because there's better pictures you can find online than the one you have taken. And what never occurs to you is that there was also a trail going up to the top. And maybe if you would have hiked that trail and put that effort into hiking that trail, by the time you reach the top, the monument would have spoken to you in another way. It's like the two actually go together and you can't separate them. So if you would have hiked the trail and you would have kept your phone in your pocket and maybe just gazed at the monument and gazed at the view and thought about your life and had some intentionality about the whole thing, something would have opened up. The architecture that we see in our travels and the statues, they're more than just a good picture. And look, I've taken plenty of pictures. You can look at my Instagram. It's fine to take the picture, but if you spend 10 minutes taking the picture, give yourself at least 10 minutes in balance to put the phone in your pocket and just sit in the temple in silence, or just stare at the monument and think about it. Because this architecture, this design, this sculpture was created with a lot of intention. And what I mean is the architect or the sculptor was trying to communicate something through shape and form, right? It's not just something pretty to get likes. It's something, it's trying to tell you something, right? That statue, that could be you in some way, maybe. For example, take the statue of Buddha. Okay, yeah, Buddha was perhaps a real person. I believe he was. But you could also look at him as an archetype, right? Like, in fact, if he's just a historical person, like any other historical person, he probably wouldn't have resonated so much throughout the years. There's so many Mesopotamian emperors and Aztecs, and Sumerians. We don't know their names, right? These great, powerful people who conquered land around them, and at the time you dropped their name, people's knees would quiver in fear. And now we don't know about them at all. Couldn't even think of their names. But yet Buddha, for some reason, is evergreen. It's something perennial about it. Now, is that just because he was a historical figure, or was it because, in a way, he is, or he might be you? Maybe he's also a kind of an archetype. So, yeah, it's for you to decide. But if you get there to that statue of Buddha on the hill, besides the picture, just look at it for a second and think about it. Well, what if it is an archetype? If it could be you, what's it trying to say about you?
I want to take a short break from this episode and quickly let you know about something I'm sure you will find useful. We are drowning in information, but starving in wisdom. This podcast, for example, has almost 300 episodes, and as you can imagine, there is ample wisdom in them. But who has the time to listen to 300 podcasts? My mission as a knowledge broker is to convert this vastness of knowledge and distill it into wisdom, into implementable insights. So I have created a free special resource for you. I have chosen the top 10 podcast episodes that offer the greatest value in three main categories of life. First, the top 10 episodes about money. Second, the top 10 episodes about health. And third, the top 10 episodes on mastering your personal development. This free ebook is a curated catalog of those top 10 podcast episodes in each category that will offer you the greatest value and in the shortest time. To get it, go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/top10 and you will also find the link in the show notes. Alright, let's get back to the episode. The word that comes to mind with how you were saying earlier about hiking that trail, or being in the temple and actually sitting down and meditating or praying in there like they used to. The phrase that came to mind is be present in that moment rather than doing anything else. Just absorb the experience. You said earlier on about slowing down, and I like that, so I will reiterate that once more. And you also use the word intentionality, which I really liked as a way to be or become more aware, or more understanding of this is something that will help me to do it, having the intentionality rather than just going up and down and just ticking things. So thank you for this. I would dare to call it practical, as that's how I understood it from the description. So it's fantastic. There is one other of the ahas that you have in your book that I would also like to have, a couple of comments from you. And that is the aha number 6. You say that you are going to die. That to from the traveling, you have the opportunity to understand your mortality. There was actually, I remember, there was a story or something that you described that you have some tools during the travel to get a more visceral understanding of the fact that you are finite and that you are going to go. Because it's one thing, to intellectually speak about death and say, yeah, I'm going to die one day, but it's very different to have a visceral understanding of it, which will probably going to make us take different choices in life. So do you want to share how do you mean that aha moment in traveling? Are we going to do something really dangerous? And how do you?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I've done, I've had quite a few near-death experiences doing a film, especially filming Road Less Traveled, which is an edgy show. So we almost died on a desert dune. I almost got lynched in Kashmir. I almost got hit by quite a few buses. Avoided quite a
Probably
few.
the average listener is probably not very much willing to do anything like that, though.
Sure, and you don't have to. You don't have to because many cultures throughout history, and even some cultures today, have reminders of death, which is kind of the flip side to life. Right? It's two sides of the coin.
It certainly is.
Yet in our modern consumer culture, we really push it away now more than ever. Growing old is almost shameful, right? You want to mask it, you want to hide it, you lie about your age, you put on the beauty products, you get plastic surgery, right? Obviously you have the right to do whatever you want to with your body in life, but it's good to question: Am I ashamed of growing old? Am I afraid of it in a cultural sense? Like there's something wrong with it, because that's very modern in culture. Other cultures throughout history have been very aware of the fact that the death is just the flip side of life. You look in medieval art; they have something called the memento mori, or the reminder of death. You'll see it in medieval art with hourglasses and wilted flowers and the skull. And you see death gods in many cultures. I mean, you had Hades in Greece, and even today in Mexico, there's a death god. There's Santa Muerte, who's gaining in popularity. I think it's the fastest growing religion in Mexico at the moment. And we filmed in 2019. We filmed in Bali. It wasn't my intention going into the episode to do an episode on death, but we got a lot of death content. We found a cemetery where they just, in a very animistic way, they just bury the dead in the open. They put a little bamboo cage around it to keep scavengers out, but you can look right through the slats in the bamboo and see the corpses. And we also got invited, just serendipitously, to a man's funeral. He was kind of like a community leader, a wealthy man, but a man who shared his wealth and helped out people in the community. And he had just passed on. And we got invited to his funeral. We showed up at like 5 p.m. The body was there. They were doing preparations. We filmed some stuff, and then we went back, took a nap. We came back at like 2 a.m. where they had the corpse out, and all the men from the village were dressing the corpse and putting like lotion on it, and then they wrapped it, and then they put it inside a coffin. And then by the morning, I think by about 10 a.m., and people spent the whole night there. The whole community spent the whole night with the body, preparing it. And then in about 10 a.m., a huge procession goes down the street They're carrying the body in a coffin. A line of people are ahead and behind. Maybe, I don't know, could have been like 200 people. And eventually we get to a field. They slide the coffin in a huge wooden statue of Nandi, which is the divine bull that Shiva rides, and then they set it on fire. And it was sort of a joyous event. Everybody was celebrating this guy's life, and I actually met a middle-aged man there who had brought his 10-year-old daughter, and I spoke to them as this big Nandi thing is burning, and he's like, "Yeah, I wanted my daughter to come out and realize this is part of life." Mm-hmm. But he said also, you should know that this guy was a good guy, and that's why even in his death, the community has come together. But if he was not a good guy, if he was just a dude who lived for himself and never helped anybody, he would be lucky if his wife and his daughter showed up to the city morgue when his body got incinerated.
Jonathan,
and so that's a reminder that life well lived. We think about life after death a lot. Well, this guy does have a life after death because he inspired and helped so many people, and he's living on through them.
What's one different action maybe or perspective for the listener for the next travel to appreciate more or have that aha that we're talking about? What's one perspective or one different way of traveling in order to
that's a great question. That? Well, there's something everybody can do right now today. It's a Stoic technique from Stoic philosophy, which came out of Greece and Rome. And the idea is, I think informally, it's called a last time meditation, right? Mm-hmm. Every one of us is going to do something for the last time. For example, there'll be a last time you play tennis, right? Whatever you play it one day, you lose your friend who you play tennis with moves away, and you think you will again sometime, but the truth is you never will. And there's a last time you'll eat a 𝘁࿬𝗄𝘆𝗀, and there's a last time you'll listen to a Barry White song. And for everything, there'll be a last time for everything. But the problem is we never appreciate things as if they were the last time. I experienced this very, very viscerally when we were actually in Bali filming this episode on death. One of my friends back in LA died of colon cancer. It happened very fast. And I was trying to meet this friend before I left to go for a hike. And he just told me, look, I'm a little under the weather, so let's do it when you get back. And I probably could have tried a little harder to meet him. I could have just swung by his house. But I just assumed I'll see him again. He's a healthy guy. But I never, I never saw him again. And that's going to be true of everything. So with that in mind, if you set out today or you set out in your travels, you just take a particular friend or particular activity you do. Maybe, I don't know, you have crab cakes for lunch. Consider this could be, I don't know about you, but I don't have crab cakes that often. So it's very likely that the next time I have it could be the last time. And if I keep that in my mind, I'm going to savor those crab cakes more than usual. And as you leave for your next trip and you say goodbye to your friends, I'm taking off for Guatemala or I'm going to Europe for the summer. Take a minute and realize that, you hope that they're all going to be there. You're going to come back and they'll all be there, but it might not. It might not happen that way. You might not come back. They might not all be there. So it seems grim. And I said, why would you want to think about that? It seems morbid. But the truth is, by holding this frame in your mind, you are going to connect more deeply with them, right? If there's something you need to say, like to your friend about how much you appreciate their friendship, they're always optimistic, they're a great listener, you love their sense of humor. Well, this is the time to say it, right? Because you might not see them again. So don't hold back. assuming you've got another shot. Don't consume those crab cakes mindlessly while you scroll news on your phone. Yeah, put the phone down and taste that food, right? When you play that game of tennis, really sink into it. Don't be lost in your mind thinking about other things. Really connect in the moment with that game and the feeling of your body running across the court and the feeling of a good swing and connection with the ball. These are things to be savored. And when we realize that there is a last time for everything, and we hold that in our minds, we can extract more juice and more connection out of life.
That's a wonderful answer, and you used the word savor a few times, and I actually kind of have been getting this, underlying message, and from you, what we were discussing earlier on, to slow down, savor the moment, be present at what you're doing, and then all sorts of amazing things or insights or aha moments will happen as a result of you actually being present and savoring the moment. And thank you very much for that last time meditation. I have uh, you said about the stoic, and I remember I have that here, so I'll just show you that I have the daily
Hey,
stoic, which
yeah.
I've been reading every day, for a few years now. It's part of my morning routine, and I remember that last time meditation. It is one of those days, so I'm going to find out which day it is, and put that also on the show notes. Jonathan, where would you direct a listener who found this conversation fascinating and would like to learn more about you and the book and what you do?
Well, my website is jonathanlegg.com. Jonathan spelled like the biblical way. Legg with two G's, Legg. The book is The Seven Ahas Every Traveler Should Have, available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and all those. And the show I'm on is called The Road Less Traveled. And if you just Googled it, there's a lot of Road Less Traveled because of the poem, and it's a catchy name. But if you search Road Less Traveled Jonathan Legg, you'll find a lot of clips, and maybe you can be directed to where you can watch the show on TV.
And I will very quickly say here that I have checked your YouTube channel, and there are some incredible stuff there. I will leave it to that because we could easily have 3 podcast conversations about some of the things there. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm just warming up here, brother.
Yeah, why not? Let's sort something out and maybe discuss some stories at some point. I would like to start wrapping things up for today, Jonathan. And I would like to ask you just a couple of quick fire questions, which I always ask my guests. And the first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Personal development means that I'm always becoming a better version of myself, more courageous, more kind, more understanding, more equanimous with the flow of life. And I'm showing up for my community as well.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. And a hypothetical one, if you could go back in time and meet, say, your 18-year-old self, what's one piece of advice you would give him?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say, that life really, the good stuff in life almost always comes with connection. So foster relationships with people who are also on a path of self-development, and make those friendships, maintain those friendships, build a good tribe, and maintain that tribe.
Jonathan, I want to thank you very much. This has been a really fascinating conversation for me. And there was, as I told you, an underlying message that I picked up. And I hope that we have conveyed that to the listeners as well. And hopefully inspire him or her to see their next travel. And generally, because this is not just about traveling, what you were saying is everyday application for life, or manual if you want, but even more for traveling. So I want to wish you all the very best with all your endeavors, and I will leave it to you for your last parting words.
Well, thank you for having me on, Aggie. This was great. I would just encourage everyone on your next travel. And when you say goodbye to your friends as you're going out the door, try this last time meditation. Think maybe I won't see them again, or maybe I won't come back. So really savor that moment and your last moment with your friends. And as you embark on the trip, try to look at it as if you were taking a psychedelic. If you swallowed a tab of LSD or some mushrooms, you wouldn't take the mushrooms and then pull out a piece of paper and say, here's a big agenda for this mushroom trip. Now, in a sense, you're just going to lean back and be open to receive something, right? You're anticipating that there's wisdom there that's just for you to detect, but you have to kind of be quiet and present with the experience to glean it. And in the same way, when you go on the travel, you've got your little itinerary, but also set it aside and consider that the road is the guru, that there is a message there for you, that you will learn something, that there's something essential to understanding of what it means to be human, to be alive. But to get it, you really have to be quiet and pay attention. But for sure, it's there.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you got valuable insights from today's episode. For your free ebook with the top 10 podcast episodes that offer the greatest value in 3 main categories of life, go to personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/top10. Until next time, stand out, don't fit in,